All right, so I was really led by the Spirit to read Romans last night. I don't typically read Romans because I just hate how Christians butcher it, but there's been a lot of people lately saying that Paul is not true. I don't know why people don't just go to the Father and ask, what's true and what's not. It would be a lot easier, so then you wouldn't come back to a group of people stating something's not true when it is, and then condemning yourself in these days because God's like, I didn't send you to tell those people that. So it says, I speak the truth in Messiah, do not lie. This is Romans 9. My conscience also bearing me witness in the set apart spirit. So you speak the truth in Messiah, and your conscience isn't afflicting you because you're speaking the truth. That I have great sadness and continual grief in my heart, for I myself did have wished to be banished from Messiah for the sake of my brothers, my relatives according to the flesh, who are the children of Israel, to whom the adoption and the esteem and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the worship and the promises. So there's also people who are saying that Israel no longer matters and that the covenant and the promise is only for them. Now, this is ironic considering they read Paul so much, but then you miss these things in the scriptures, especially the one that talks about how, don't say that the natural branches no longer are relevant. That's in Romans. So it says, who is the adoption to, who is the esteem to, and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the worship and the promises? The children of Israel. All right, when he says children of Israel, he's only talking about the children of Israel. So it says, whose are the fathers, and from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh, who is all over Elohim blessed forever. So Israel, his brothers of the flesh, belong to the Messiah. All right, and from whom the Messiah comes from. It says that the Messiah will come, well, it says both. It says he'll come out of Judah, and it also says that he'll come up out of Egypt, which I believe Joseph is a representation of that. So it says, however, it is not as though the word of Elohim has failed, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. Now, this is where people start to say, well, this is talking about the Gentiles. It isn't actually talking about the Gentiles. So you have King Herod, who was not an Israelite. King Herod was an Edomite, all right? So there were lots of people who were, I believe, Hebrews, but not necessarily Israelites, that had came to the Messiah. Mark 3:8, I believe it is, states that Esau came to the Messiah, Edomiah. It says, neither are they all children, because they are the seed of Abraham, okay? Esau is the seed of Abraham. Isaac is the seed of Abraham, all right? But it says, but in Isaac your seed shall be called. That is, those who are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. All right? So when he talks about the children of the flesh, he is talking about people who end up fleshly in their nature. Does this mean that Israel was not given the promises? No, although they are his brothers by the flesh, it doesn't necessarily mean they are fleshly. So it says, but the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. And who does it say up here? Who are the children of Israel, to whom the adoption and the esteem and the covenants and the giving of Torah and the worship and the promises? All right, this is the seed. For this is the word of promise, at this time I shall come, and Sarah should have a son. And not only so, but Rivkah having conceived by one, our father Ishak. Yet before they were born, or had done any good or evil, in order that the purpose of Elohim according to choice might stand, not of works, but of him who calls, it was said to her, the greater shall serve the less. So who is the greater in this case? Esau would have been, I don't know, what does Bereshit say? Would Esau be the greater serving the lesser? Or would Jacob be the greater serving the lesser? Considering how the other texts go and how the world is right now, I would actually say that the greater is serving the lesser. So the Messiah, he came to serve, all right? And that's who the greater is. Those who are the greatest among you will serve. So it says, as it has been written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. What then shall we say? Is there unrighteousness with Elohim? Let it not be. For he says to Moshe, I shall favor whom I favor, and I shall have compassion on whom I have compassion. So then it is not of him who is wishing, nor of him who is running, but of Elohim who shows favor. For the scriptures say to Pharaoh, for this same purpose I have raised you up to show my power in you, that my name declared in all the earth. So understand that, yes, Israel was subdued, but they were also raised up to show his power. So it says, then he favors whom he wishes, and he hardens whom he wishes. Then you shall say to me, why does he still find fault? For who has resisted his counsel? But who are you, O man, to talk back to Elohim? Shall that which is formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? Does not the potter have authority over the clay from the same lump to make one vessel for value and another not for value? And if Elohim, desiring to show wrath, to make his power known, with much patience tolerated the vessels of wrath prepared for destruction. So understand that people take this the wrong way. I think they think that, hey, you were just created from the womb to be in destruction, and you over here, you were created to be blessed. No, I think definitely what it is dependent on your obedience to God. So if you want to be disobedient, then he's made you a vessel for destruction. So it says, and that he might make known the riches of esteem on vessels of compassion, which he had prepared beforehand for esteem, even whom he called not only us of the Yehudim, but also of the nations. And I was about to quote Hosea, but that's the next scripture. So he says in Hosea 2, I shall call them my people who were not my people, and her beloved who were not my beloved. So see that these people went into destruction, but he made a promise to them. They are the children of the promise, Israel, that those people in that place would be called his beloved at the appointed time. Now, when I was reading this last night, I was like, all these people are saying that we are not his people, that we are not his children, that we are not his chosen seed. And they're saying it right now. So this is a fulfillment that's going on right now. I shall call them my people who were not my people, and her beloved who was not my beloved. This is not a reference to the Gentiles. This is a fulfillment of Hosea concerning the Israelites that went into destruction, that were scattered, and these people are the flesh brothers of Paul. All right. It says, and it shall be in a place where it was said to them, you are not my people. There they shall be called the sons of the living Elohim. So that's Hosea 2:23 and Hosea 1:10. So all these people, you're not his children, talking about, us Israelites who are black because they don't understand the prophecies because they weren't handed down to them. Continuing, it says, and Yeshayahu cries on behalf of Israel, though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, the remnant shall be saved. For he is bringing a matter to an end and cutting it short in righteousness, because Yahweh shall cut short a matter on the earth. So right now, he is cutting short a matter. All right? Right now. And as Yeshayahu said before, if Yahweh of hosts had not left us a seed, we would have become like Sodom, and we would have been made like Gomorrah. So I said this to myself, I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. So what's it saying? It's basically saying, like, the time is now. What shall we say then? That the nations not following after righteousness have obtained righteousness, even the righteousness of belief. But Israel, following after Torah of righteousness, has not arrived at the Torah of righteousness. So basically what Paul just did was make a comparison of the lost tribes of Israel to the Gentiles at this point. All right, he's saying if he took these people that went into destruction and raised them up, why can't he do the same with the Gentiles? All right. But then he's also bringing forth Israel, who followed after the Torah of righteousness, has not arrived at the Torah of righteousness. Now, this is where Gentiles get confused. All right. They start saying, oh, if you break one law, you break them all, whatever. Not understanding that the reason they did not arrive at the Torah of righteousness because they were doing things like simply sacrificing animals and not repenting. They were adding and taking away from the Torah, which makes the Torah null and void in their lives. So it says, why? It wasn't a Torah of belief. They didn't really believe in Elohim anymore. So while they were trying to do the law, they ended up stumbling at the stone of stumbling. All right? You have to have belief. True belief in Elohim gives you spirit. All right? And spirit and faith lay down the law. So it says, as it has been written, see, I lay in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock that makes for falling, and everyone who is believing on him shall not be put to shame. Truly, brothers, my heart desire and prayer to Elohim for Israel is for deliverance. For I bear them witness that they have an ardor for Elohim, but not according to knowledge. So it was interesting because we were watching The Chosen last night. And one of the dudes is on there. I don't know, was it James? I don't know who it was. I can't remember all of them. But they were talking about, oh, how dare the Babylonians come into this, and all these people who have unalived. They had an ardor for Elohim, but not of knowledge. They didn't understand that Elohim could raise up these other nations and bring them into the truth. And really, you should be welcoming to them, because first off, they're repenting of their sins. They are going to stop doing their child sacrifices, all these kinds of things that would bring peace to the earth. And you're like, no, we don't want them. So anyway, it says, and get this, all right, for not knowing the righteousness of Elohim and seeking to establish their own righteousness. There is a difference between your self-righteousness and the righteousness of Elohim. Now, what I've seen a lot of Gentiles do is claim that I am being self-righteous or someone else is being self-righteous because we tell them what the law is. You're actually being self-righteous because you're trying to deny the law. You're not coming to the righteousness of Elohim because you don't want to do what he says. So you want to do what you say, and then you want to start making up laws out of your own head. So it says, they did not subject themselves to the righteousness of Elohim, for Messiah is the goal of the Torah unto righteousness to everyone who believes. You also need to catch this, because people don't understand when you have belief and faith in God, in spirit and in truth, that would establish the law, and what you would receive is the Messiah. What did the Messiah do? He went out, he healed the sick, he freed the captives, he raised the dead. So if you actually follow the righteousness of God, you're walking in his laws, his statutes, and his commandments, you will actually do the same. You will become a deliverer or a Messiah, because the Messiah will be in you. And the reason why I know that is because I was able to do those things. And I went to this place in, I think it was Greenville, South Carolina, and there was a couple of possessed guys there, they were management. And I came around the corner, and one of them was like, what do you want with us, Jesus? And he looked straight at me. And that's not the first time I was called Jesus. Jesus in Hebrew is Yehoshua, and it means the salvation of God. And God told me a long time ago I would be a deliverer. But what do you see in these churches? The Messiah, although he's being fangirled and talked about, they're denying the laws, they're denying their faith. They don't walk in the true righteousness of God, except the righteousness that they get from belief, but not the righteousness that they would get with establishing the law and walking in it. So there is like power there in that sense, but you don't cast out demons, you don't raise the dead, you don't heal the sick, you're not leaving, selling all your possessions to go follow him. And so, the works are there, but they could be on a much grander scale. But, at the same time, like, you can't really condemn them too much for the little bit that they do. Because they still have belief in the Messiah. It's just, you could do more. You could do more. But it says, for Moshe writes about the righteousness, which is of Torah, the man who does this shall live by it. All right? But the righteousness of belief speaks in this way, do not say in your heart, who shall ascend into the heavens? That is to bring Messiah down, who shall descend into the abyss? That is to bring Messiah up from the dead. So that's something that I still have to pray about. All right. Perhaps one is more so of an intellectual knowledge, and the other one is like a heart knowledge. All right. You're not only saying it, but you're also doing it. It says, but what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. There's the answer right there. I didn't even know. So I know that was the Spirit. It says, that is the word of belief which we are proclaiming, that if you confess with your mouth the Master Yeshua and believe in your heart that Elohim has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. But here's the kicker. Don't just intellectually say, okay, the Master has raised him from the dead. You have to believe in your heart that he's been raised from the dead, that he is who he says he is. And if you really believe, then you're going to do. All right? For with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and one confesses with the mouth, and so is saved. All right? So the work is to believe that God exists, that he sent his son, that he really did raise from the dead. And so you are saved for that reason. But the scripture says, whoever puts his trust in him shall not be put to shame, because there is no distinction between Yehudi and Greek, for the same master of all is rich to all calling upon him. So if the Greeks or the nations truly believe, then there's no distinction between us and them. All right. The problem is many don't believe, and they're still Greeks. And there's little, prior Greeks that have been grafted into Israel mixed in there as well. A lot of times when I talk to Messianic or Torah keepers, I'm like, these is my brothers, they're Israelites. They can be from this nation and that nation and whatever, but these are Israelites. A lot of time when I talk to people in the Sunday church, I'm like, they're Gentiles. They're Greeks. They have no power. They're just, Jesus is a word on their lips. That's it. So there's a difference, all right? Everyone's grafted into Israel. God has one nation, Israel. All right, and that doesn't mean that these Gentiles that are still Greeks and that kind of stuff in the church can't become Israel. No, they can be grafted in, but you can't be sitting here talking about, oh, the Sabbaths are done away and the feasts are done away. You're a Greek, all right? You practice Greek things. You practice the holidays of this world. You deny his law. You're a Greek. You're not an Israelite. So you cannot come to me and talk about how there's neither Jew nor Greek when you're doing that kind of stuff. It says, for everyone who calls on the name of Yahweh shall be saved. And so that actually led me to Yoel 2:32, and I'm going to do that in another video. I'm going to finish reading this. But it says, how then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming? So, basically they've been given the truth, and there's a reason why they're calling on his name. And how shall they proclaim if they are not sent? As it has been written, how pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news of peace, who bring the good news of the good. Yeah, you want to hear something good when all you've been hearing is bad. It says, however, not all obeyed the good news. For Yeshua, or Yeshuyahu, saying, Yahweh, who has believed our report. So yeah, you've gone out and you've talked to all these Israelites, and they like, yeah, I don't believe it. But I asked, did they not hear? Yes, indeed. Their voice went out to all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world. So yeah, this really happened. The words went to the end of the world. But I asked, did Israel not know? First Moshe says, I shall provoke you to jealousy by those who are not a nation. I shall enrage you by an unwise nation. So a lot of us descendants of Israel have been talking about how the Gentiles don't know anything. I've been seeing it so clearly too. So clearly, because for people who think they know everything, it's like, how can you not draw this connection and this? And look, it was provoking me. It still provokes me to this day, because I'm like, go to your father and ask. Like, why do we have to keep telling you stuff and you unaliving us spiritually? I'm provoked, all right? And a lot of Israel is, because sometimes we're like, how do they not know this? How do they not understand? Why do they say that they have the Son, but then you don't know the basics of this? You can't draw the connections. You want to sit here and throw a fit, like all this stuff. And Yeshuyahu boldly says, I was found by those not seeking me. I was made manifest to those not asking for me. So, yeah, God revealed himself to the Gentiles, all right? And Israel, he says, all day long I have stretched out my hand to a disobedient and back-talking people. So when Israel did what they did, basically they were cut off, and then these other nations came in. It says, I say then, has Elohim rejected his people? Let it not be, for I am also of Israel, the seed of Abraham, the tribe of Benjamin. So Gentiles, you need to stop saying that his people are rejected. That's wrong. Elohim has not rejected his people, whom he knew beforehand, because a good father doesn't do such a thing. Or do you not know what the scripture says of Eliyahu, how he pleads with Elohim against Israel, saying, Yahweh, they have killed your prophets and overthrown your slaughter places, and I alone am left, and they seek my life. But what does the answer of Elohim say to him? I have left for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed to the knee of Baal. All right, so yeah, even though they was trying to kill you, understand, look, they're gonna live. So therefore also at this present time a remnant according to the choice of favor has come to be. And I think it's saying that. It might be saying something else. I have to pray about it. But it says, and if by favor it is no longer of the works. Perhaps it's talking about how Isaiah is the remnant. All right, these people are wild. They're wild. Israel is wild. Look at the black people in America. All right, not all of them are Israel, but many of them are. They wild. It says, and if by favor it is no longer by works. Otherwise, favor is no longer favor. And if it is of works, it is no longer favor. Otherwise, work is no longer work. So God favored his people even without works. That's the first time I'm reading or hearing that, even though I have read it and heard it probably 1,000 times. So good job, Gentiles. You did get that one right. What then? Israel has not obtained what it seeks, But the chosen did obtain it, and the rest were hardened. As it has been written, Yahweh has given them a spirit of deep sleep, eyes not to see and ears not to hear, unto this day. David also says, let their table become a snare for a trap, and for a stumbling block, and a recompense to them. So you reap what you sow. Let their eyes be darkened, not to see, and bow down their back always. I say then, have they stumbled that they shall fall? Let it not be. All right, so even though they've been ensnared, eyes have been darkened, hearts have been hardened, I say, have they stumbled that they should fall? No, they haven't, because God still has favor towards us. But by their fall, deliverance has come to the nations, all right, to provoke them to jealousy. So he's trying to provoke you to jealousy so that you turn back to him. And if their fall is riches for the world and a failure riches for the nations, how much more their completeness? For I speak to you. Yeah, because, part of your journey was to help these other nations to be a light in the world. For I speak to you, the nations, inasmuch as I am an emissary to the nations, I esteem my service, if somehow I might provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh, and save some of them. For if their casting away is the restoration to favor of the world, what is their acceptance but life from the dead? Now if the first fruit is set apart, the lump is also, and if the root is set apart, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, have been grafted in among them, and came to share the root and fatness of the olive tree, don't boast against the branches. And what do Christians do? You boast against the natural branches, and you say that we're not his people. It says, and if you boast, remember, you don't bear the root bears you, so you're not the one in control. You shall say then, that the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. How often do you hear these people say that? Very rarely. Good, but by unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear. For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. See, the kindness and sharpness of Elohim, on those who fell sharpness, but toward you kindness, if you continue in his kindness, otherwise you shall be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, shall be grafted in. For Elohim is able to graft them in again. And I think that's actually what's happening at this point, because what ended up happening was people chose church as a business, all right? This is why you see the lack of power, the lack of wisdom. And so his people, and this book mentioned Joel, go read that, I'm about to do a video on it after this, is basically what's happening now, all right? You had your time, the fullness of the Gentiles, you didn't do what was right by God, and so his people are coming back. So it says, did I say this? How much more shall those who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? And many of them are upset at that. They are, because they want to be in control. For I do not wish you to be ignorant of the seeker, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardened in part has come over Israel, until the completeness of the nations. This is where we're at, all right? The completion of the nations, the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel shall be saved. The deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Jacob. Who is Jacob? The people that you said don't matter anymore. These people that went on the transatlantic slave trade and were scattered to four corners of the globe, and they're also in Africa, and there might be other places, but this is as far as God has taken me. So it says, and this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. And what's the covenant? The covenant is the law written on the hearts and minds of Judah and Israel. Through their subduing, all right, they went into destruction, they went in slavery, they had to deal with all this stuff in the world. Gentiles came in, they took over, all right, because of our disobedience. But the Gentiles' time is almost up because they're not doing what's right. Now, he's like, I haven't forgotten you. I'm going to bring you in. All of Israel will be saved. So, yeah. Let's see. Truly, as regards the good news, they are enemies for your sake. But concerning the choice, they are beloved for the sake of the Father. Who's beloved for the sake of the Father? Israel. All right, for the gifts and the calling of Elohim are not to be repented of. For as you also at one time disobeyed Elohim, but now have obtained compassion through their disobedience, so also these have now disobeyed, that through the compassion shown to you, they might obtain compassion. He is showing the same compassion to the Gentiles as he showed to Israel, and now he's showing the same compassion to Israel as he showed the Gentiles. Quit hating. For Elohim has shut them up to disobedience in order to have compassion on all. Oh, the depth of riches and wisdom and knowledge of Elohim, how unsearchable his judgments and untraceable his ways. For who has known the mind of Yahweh, or who has become his counselor? Nobody. Or who first gave to him, and it shall be given back to him. Because of him, and through him, and to him, are all to whom be esteemed forever. Woo! All right, should I read 12? I don't think I got enough room on my phone. No, we're going to stop at 12, but yeah. The time of the Gentiles is up.